Hey, what's up, you guys? So, today I wanted to go over something that I saw today, and I was wondering why I hadn't thought about this or why I have not discussed this before, and that is I was scrolling through YouTube, and somehow I was recommended to a video of the case of some doctor or whatever was he was like a fertility doctor, and he ended up actually donating his own genetic information and got women pregnant this way. And when I thought about it, I was actually quite horrified because you are going to some clinic and you are trusting that you're going there to be helped at conceiving, given that maybe your partner may not be very fertile or you yourself may be having challenges. Whatever the actual reason people go the artificial insemination, whatever route, I've never really looked into that, so I really wouldn't be able to tell you why people go for that route. But let's just assume that it's because maybe the guy cannot get a girl to conceive or something. I don't know. I don't want to blame the guy without knowing, because it's also possible that the girl herself just has issues, just becoming pregnant, whatever the case. And I thought about this, and I was thinking, what if I found myself in that situation? I thought about it from two different perspectives. There's the perspective of, let's say that whatever guy I am with or seeing decides that he wants to be a sperm donor, and then someone ends up using his information, and another couple ends up expecting, and it's with my man's genetic info. How would I feel about that? Would I consider that a form of cheating or not? And when I thought about it, I wanted to say yes, because in a sense, you are actually mating with someone else, but the only difference is that the method, the technique through which you are accomplishing this is different. There is no emotional bond. There is definitely not a physical bond. All that is happening is science has its instrument, and that instrument is used to get the girl to be expecting. But when I think about it in the grand scheme of things, I cannot be happy knowing that my guy actually conceived a child with someone else. Technically, that's what it means. And whether or not we want to admit this or deny this, there's no denial that my guy is parenting another child. No amount of say legally you don't have to be bound to this child because you just donated your info, and it doesn't mean that you are actually the one who's in charge of this kid. All that you did was share your DNA. It's still your kid in mother nature's eyes, even though this is an artificial method. I cannot just agree with the fact that my boyfriend now has a child with someone else, even though nothing physical took place, even though there's no, like, it's not like they were getting emotionally connected or anything. It would still bother me because I'm over here taking care of myself to not have kids so that I can only build a family with one person, and so that my kids do not end up having have siblings, and that creates a whole clusterfuck of, you know, you have a lot of siblings, you don't even know who's your sibling anymore. I just don't want to deal with that mess. So if I'm actually taking my time and being careful to not have any children so that I don't have to share my family with another family, or so that I don't have to share my man with another woman, why would I be okay with a guy sharing his stuff, the guy who's with me sharing his stuff so that another couple can become parents? Again, I know that it's not intervening directly, it's not like my guy has to be in charge of this other child, but again, it doesn't change the fact that this kid is related to, say, any kid that I have is going to have a half sibling. And at some point, that child is going to grow, become older, hit up biology class. They're going to learn about genetics. And then at some point, they are going to know the story of how one of their parents is not their parent, and they are going to want to find their other family. It just happens. That's just the way things are. People get curious about their origin and where they come from. You have a right to question that stuff. But then I also thought it from the point of view of, let's say that I want a child, but for some reason my partner does not want to have a child with me. But I want a child right now for it to be delivered like 9 months from now. What am I going to do? Am I going to just decide to not have a kid because my partner doesn't want a kid, but I want to have a kid whether he wants to have a kid or not? Like, first of all, I think that I have to do right by me. So a guy who's not on the same page about having a kid with me is definitely no good. So, like, you need to go, period. But in the event that for some reason we just stay together, it's like, would you be okay with me becoming pregnant with another guy's DNA just because you are failing at your job of getting me to have a child the way I want to? I know that sounded blunt, but just to keep the focus on like me and what I want, that's the way I would put it. But yeah, it's like you probably are not going to be cool with the fact that I have a product coming from another guy. So, in the same manner that you're not cool with that, I don't have to be cool with you suddenly donating your stuff so that another couple can have a child. It's not necessarily the same situation. Like someone whom I discussed this with, like brought this up, and I said, "Well, dude, that's the whole reason I'm bringing it up from a different point of view, because it's good to dissect this from many different angles so that you can see why it is just wrong and just a problem no matter in which direction you approach this from, in my opinion. So I just don't expect for you to be cool with that in the same manner that you cannot expect for me to be cool with you having a child. Even though you're not being physically nor emotionally involved with another person, you are still having a kid. So, you wouldn't like for me to have a kid from another man, right? So, see what I mean? It's just a messy situation. I think that as great as it is that this gives an opportunity for couples to have children, at least children of their own, without needing to depend on the actual mating process, whatever the reason may be that you have trouble conceiving with your partner. I think that science is taking stuff a little too far and it doesn't consider some consequences. Like the world is just really, really, really small. So, what's to keep you becoming close with your half sibling and you accidentally mating with them? I think that has happened in history. I cannot see why that cannot happen. Like I said, the world is just too small, and if you keep this information hidden away, if you don't tell your child about their origin, anything can happen. I'm a firm believer that anything in life is just possible like that. So I just wouldn't like to find myself in that situation. I don't think any child deserves that. And I think that it's something that adults really need to think about. But I just honestly do not approve of that method to achieve uh, becoming a parent. Like, again, it's cool that the opportunity is there, but it doesn't change the fact that your child is growing up with certain traits and they have to be apart from their family at least until they're like 18 years old, I guess, to where they can make their own decisions as to where they want to be at. But I don't think that children particularly enjoy that they cannot be with people who they are kin to, your relatives. These are still your relatives on the genetic level. You don't have to necessarily be attached to them, because what can I say? If you have family members who are violent towards you, I would not encourage anybody to stay in an abusive relationship. So your family can also be a toxic family. I would not be trying to send you to be with people who are negative. But if these people happen to be a good family, you have a right to get together with them. So I feel like you are being ripped apart from those who are like you. Um, I don't know. At least you'll have your mother's family, but it's kind of awkward that it's kind of a form of adoption, if you ask me. I don't know. The more I think about it, the messier it gets. I just know that I would not participate in it. And if there is a reason for me to not be able to conceive, I'm like, okay, I'll be childless, period. Or if for some reason my boyfriend or husband cannot conceive, I guess I would rather adopt. Like, this child is already alive, he's here or she's here, and they just don't know their family. Let's give them a family. Let's integrate them into a family. They're not related to me. They're not related to my boyfriend. Rather than, okay, I have a child. That child is related to me, but is not related to my spouse. The whole point of me having a partner is for me to start a family with them. It's like I don't want to have an extension. I like for them to be able to track where they come from. But anyways, you don't have to agree with me. This is just my opinion. I know it's kind of extreme. I'm not trying to say that my answer is the right answer. This is just my feelings, my opinions, and I just want to hear what you guys have to say about it, because for me, this is a particularly messy topic, and I can really only focus on the negatives more than the positives, even if my negatives may sound straight up ignorant. But I just want to prevent disaster from happening. I'm not sure I could handle keeping my kids at bay of, this is your family as well, but you really cannot bond with them because they're actually members of another family. Like, what? No, that is contradictory. You have relatives and they are over here. Get to know them. Or if you don't want to get to know them, okay, but I'm not going to deny to my child that they have other relatives, you know? So to avoid that, how about if I just don't do that, period? But then again, the other couple might know what they're doing, so. Let's see. Steve asks how many kids I would like to have. Well, sometimes I have said that I only want to have one kid because honestly, I feel like that process is just overwhelming. But at the same time, I know that there can be a little bit of negative effects when it comes to being an only child. So I feel like my cap would be at two. Like, I have one full brother, and to me, that was just perfect. When I was a little older, I was wishing for a younger sibling. But when I think about it, it's good that we didn't have that younger sibling because uh, life just has many turns, and I just don't know what my life would be like if I would have had another sibling. A lot of the things that I can get to do now, I definitely would not be able to do. And I guess my mother also, I feel like she would have been a little overwhelmed at the time. So yeah, I think two is the best number, and preferably if you have one male and one female, which is, of course, what happened between my parents. But then again, I have two half brothers, one of whom I have never met, so I don't want for my kids to find themselves in that situation. You have siblings, but you do not get to meet them. It's just bad. So I think my ideal number for comfort's sake is one, but when it comes to the benefit and the balance of the family, I think two is the best number to have. But if you cannot handle more than one child, don't feel compelled to have more than one child. See what I mean? But at the same time, if you cannot handle children, period, or if you're not ready for them, how about if you just wait 'Cause a lot of people be having kids these days thinking that that's going to make the relationship stronger. And let me tell you, that does not always work. I have seen this up close and it's just messy. You know, the kids are the ones who end up suffering. So we need to take care of them. It happened a few times. There is a Jeremy Kyle show about one of them. Like having kids in general, the couple in question should really be on the same page about whether to donate DNA. If not, don't do it. Honestly, I think that donating DNA or sending it away to someone who you just don't know, it's kind of asking for disaster because what's going to be done with the DNA? Like, if you donate it, they're supposedly saying that this is intended to be utilized to, for artificial insemination. But at the same time, I'm like, when you send this off to other places like the ancestry stuff, what really happens to your DNA? I just don't want for my DNA to be just going around freely like that, you know? I just don't trust people, third parties. So, but you're right. I think it's something that you should consult your spouse and just be as open and sincere about it as you can. And if for some reason you want to do this really bad, but your spouse feels uncomfortable or just doesn't approve of it, period, I would encourage you to respect them and see where they're coming from because I would be that person. I would be the spouse who is totally not cool with this. But at the same time, I would not like for our relationship to be damaged over something that honestly shouldn't have any importance because all it takes is for you to just not do this. So, but at the same time, if you really want to be someone's hero and get someone rolling on their parenting quest, then you do right by you. But if it's me, it's good to know you, but the relationship cannot go any further with me if I found myself in that situation. Like, I don't want to be selfish. It's just that I don't want for there to be broken families. And no matter how much we try to pretend that this is not going to have an effect on the kids, it will. On most, I would imagine. So let's just not mess with that. As for the scientific approach, if a couple are biologically incapable of conceiving their own, well, my first thought is if that's the case and you really want a kid, what's wrong with adoption? Right. I agree, adoption is a much less egotistical route if infertility is a problem. But see, at the same time, when it comes to adopting, it's not that there is something wrong with adopting another kid or like it's wrong. In fact, I like the fact that there's people out there who adopt because you're giving a child who is in an orphanage an opportunity to lead a better life. But at the same time, it's it's okay for you to want to have kids of your own because it's cool to keep your family line going. Like, at least I'm a believer that you are born with the impulse to want to reproduce. So it's okay for you to desire that your children look like you and they carry on your traits. Like, it's ensuring your survival. That's like the evolutionary trait, I would imagine. So I like the idea of adopting, but at the same time, I want kids of my own. Because, it's a desire. I guess it's a selfish desire, nah, my child has to look like me, has to, carry with my genetics and this and that. My partner also has to be involved. I get it. I think it's better to maybe adopt so that we can give these children a home where they can just lead more normal lives, I guess. But again, you may have a personal goal. Like me as a woman, I think it's important for me to actually go through the process of giving birth because that is a way for me to bond with my baby. And I don't want to be deprived of that experience. See what I mean? Whereas a kid who is adopted is already, in the planet, it's already existing. They don't need to be, like breastfed. That's also an important part of being a mother and parenting. I'm not going to speak for the guys. I'm not sure what you bonding with a newborn is like, but I would imagine that you would like to witness the birth of your own child. So, those little things, whether we like it or not, we may attach importance to that. And I think if you as an individual do, you have a right to experience that. Whereas if you limit yourself to the experience of adopting, then yeah. But if you happen to know for a fact that you are infertile or your partner is infertile, then sure. But at the same time, if I want kids of my own and my partner is infertile, I think I would have to take the difficult or make the difficult decision of letting go of this partner, even if I love him to death, because I want to be able to experience that, the stuff that I just mentioned. So it's okay for you to not be compatible on that route. That means that you have to give the opportunity to someone else. Like, I'm not a big fan of going around in the pursuit of partners, but you gotta do right by you. And I feel like for me, that's important. So if my partner is not, put it this way, if you are not fit enough to give me a child, then it's not about physical fitness necessarily, but if you think about it critically, whatever the reasons for your infertility, um, that you want a mate who is healthy and strong and whatnot. So that for me, it would have a psychological effect. Like, I wouldn't like for a guy to reject me just because I'm infertile, but if the guy has issues with me being infertile, that means that guy is not the right guy for me. So that's what I would do. That's how I would be like. Let's say that I'm also someone who, let's say I have a guy who for some reason likes to be physical and touchy and all that, and I'm not. You have a right to find a partner who corresponds to you. So I have a right to have a partner who corresponds to me when it comes to parenting, which is I want kids of my own and I want to conceive them with my partner. So again, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying that this other stuff is wrong. I'm just saying that for me, I don't know. I don't prefer it. I'm not a fan of it. But I'm glad that in fact, that science has progressed so much to where this, to me, it's a miracle. This is impressive for me. The fact that you can get, pregnant through other methods. But at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, it would not work for me in my personal relationships. That's all I'm saying. Sure, however, willing to rear a child unless it shares your DNA, that seems fairly egotistical to me. Oh, I think there's an emotional stake in involving DNA doctors. I don't want to say it's ego necessarily, although it might be, but there definitely seems to be more emotional significance to giving birth. Exactly. Oh, wow, I have it right when you had commented that. That said, I think if I really wanted a kid and my partner couldn't conceive, I would opt for adopting. The kid needs a family anyway. Right? Why bring extra kids into the world where hundreds of thousands already are begging for a home and family? Exactly. Not like, oh crap. Not like there aren't enough people in the world. I think a lot of gay people take that option. Yeah, I think they choice, but um, not necessarily, because there's also the route of insemination stuff, you know? Like, if you're a gay couple, then I guess you can just borrow a woman to serve as your personal incubator, and, your partner can give her his stuff, and you can give maybe the same woman after the 9 months, or another different woman, and you give her your information. I don't know. It's just a big mess, like, yeah, you have to discuss with your partner. So, hey, honey, are we both going to be individual dads, or are we just going to use one of us? information. Like, say that you take a DNA test and you determine of you two on a genetic level which one is superior. Like, that's just a conversation I don't want to have, period. I think a gay couple shouldn't be allowed to adopt. You're starving a child of the whole spectrum of emotional development. Children need the balance of nature from women and the strength from men. You know what? Very valid point. That has always been my concern when it comes to that kind of relationship, that kind of couple, that kind of parenting. It's not to say that they are incapable of supplying a child with a safe home and whatnot. It's just that it does matter whether you are brought up by a single mother, a single father, a two parents, or you have a marriage but one of them is not your parent, or if you're born, or sorry, if you grow up without parents, period. All of those have an emotional effect. And I think the best way to bring up a child is with both of their real parents, but also in a safe and healthy environment, like a strong marriage. Let's just sum it up with that. Because let me tell you, I grew up without a daddy and it fucked me up. And it wasn't until like my early 20s that I wasn't able to finally let go. Some kids heal faster, some kids take decades, just like me. So, I don't want to risk that happening in my family. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to necessarily call it evil. I'm not too bothered about my genes being passed on, but I understand the emotional significance of it. And it's like robbing them half of their potential. Exactly. That's a very good way to put it. All right, guys, I am going to have to bail on you right now because I have to get ready for the rest of my evening. But this was a pretty interesting topic to go over. I just did not think about this. Is it ethical to sell sperm to a bank? I have thought about that before, but I want to say no. Only because you, it's like, let me put it in a very weak but crazy perspective. You can be given your information all the time and just selling it to a bank, but all you're doing is profiting off your genetic information. It's like you can supply them endlessly with this and you get paid. That's how you make a living, I guess. And you're just selling your kids and you can never really track them down. It's like once the child is born and they want to track you down because you are on the genetic level their dad, how can they even begin to do that? You, I don't want to say it's prostitution because you're not having intercourse, but you're still making money off the life of someone else. It's not ethical. It cannot be ethical. Like, you're selling your kids for money, except that your kid hasn't been born yet. But you still sold them. See what I mean? Like, at least for me, giving up a child for adoption is not as bad, because at least you had a chance to birth them and see them and whatnot. But you're just mindlessly sending away your genes, and no, it's not ethical, period. I'm not sure how to explain my thoughts, but it's not ethical. I don't think it's ethical. But I mean, I'm not going to judge the people who do it. If you really want to make a dime that badly and it doesn't affect you emotionally, then okay. But for me, I cannot imagine me giving my information and just not caring for the rest of my life. Like, oh yeah, I donated my information some 20 times. I have the potential of becoming a parent 20 times, but I'm not going to be involved. That just sounds really fucked up in my brain. It just does. Maybe it's not that bad, but to me, it's not ethical. It's not ethical. You're intentionally abandoning a child for profit. No. Oh, cool. White Knight kind of shares my thoughts on that one when it comes to saying no. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Any of you guys who catch the stream later, let me know your comments. Let me know your thoughts in your comments, as always, and I'll see you soon.